Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mining Now. I'm your host, Jared Downey. You've probably been seeing a lot of me doing these episodes lately from Australia. Well, I'm not in Australia. I'm in Vancouver, but our team, especially Dennis, has been going around Australia, setting up all our equipment so that we can do these interviews as part of our heavy industry world tour. Today, we are doing part 3 of Geographe. We're going to have their operations manager, Rod Fox, on. We've already had, oh, and then we're going to do actually, this is going to be a two-part. The second guest is going to be Clayton Hyder. He is the chairman of Geographe. So, our first episode, we had Sam Hyder on. He really talked, he's their CEO. He really talked about the vision of the company and implementing that. Then we had Shane Atwood on, and he really talked about onboarding the team and implementing new systems from a human perspective. And now we're going to bring on Rod to talk about it really from the actual equipment, putting it all together, upgrading what they've done. It's going to be the nuts and bolts and something I love talking about on the show. Before we do that, we're going to be in Indaba, February 6th to 9th. That's as part of our Heavy Industry World Tour. And then we are going to be at PowerGen in Florida, February 21st to 23rd. If you are seeing it before that, if you're seeing this episode before those dates, reach out to us and we can get you on for an interview. And of course, thank you to Savinaw Equipment for being our travel sponsor, helping us get all over the world. Absolutely amazing. Okay, Rod, welcome to the show. It is great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. Welcome.
I am going to address something right off the bat. Is you've had a robot going around behind you, and then it literally disappeared the moment we brought you on camera. So I'm just going to tell the audience the robot will be back.
It definitely be back. It'll be off doing something.
Yeah.
It just runs up backwards and forwards, loading and unloading a couple of different machines. So it
Yeah.
stops from time to time, and it'll stop behind us.
You are literally going to be the first guest that is going to have to compete with a robot for the audience's attention. So let's see how it goes.
That's fine.
Um, let's get into it right away. I mean, how long have you been with Geographe?
So first involved with Geographe about 36 years ago. I finished my apprenticeship back in about 85, 86, and about 3 months after that, I came here. Lucky enough to get a job here working in the foundry. I'm a molder by trade,
Okay.
and yeah, just through I don't know, a lot of good luck, I guess, managed to progress through to the company to where I am now. Yeah, I went through quite a few different stages of careers here. A bit of background, I guess, about Geographe. We do a lot of engineering processes,
Yeah.
including things like hard chrome plating and our heat treatment foundry fabrication and things like that. So I was very lucky to learn a lot of different processes like the hard chrome plating and the heat treatment, and then went on to do a metallurgy degree through
Oh.
Geographe. Then went into quality management for about 10 years, and then yeah, around about 2009 took on the operation manager's role here at
Can you
Geographe.
set up
So
a little bit out in Bunbury? What
yeah,
is sort of the operational setup out there?
yeah. So we're the main manufacturing facility for Geographe Enterprises. We would be producing somewhere around about 70 or 80%
Okay.
of all the manufactured products that we sell. Typically, it's for wear components for earth moving equipment, so OEM replacements and enhanced performance products that we make for the local and international
I'm
mining
gonna
miners.
something I really wanted to ask when you said you've been, because you said 36 years you've been with the company, right?
Yeah, I had a little break for 3 years, but yeah, 36 years was the first time I walked through the door.
Well, it's always good to take a little bit
Yeah.
of a break. Over 36 years, I think you're allowed to do that.
Uh, I was very keen to come back after I'd left.
Yeah.
I left for about 3 years, but it was good because you go and learn a few
Yeah,
different other,
absolutely.
other skills and trades around the traps, and yeah, to come back in, I was very very keen to get back into working for Geographe.
Over those 36 years, what has been from an operational or more of, I guess, mechanical standpoint? Are you in the most sort of extreme shift in the company's capability now, or is there over those 36 years, there's a moment that stands out maybe so even more?
definitely the last couple of years is the real moment that stands out. But in the early 2000s, from sort of 2000 to 2004, we did go through quite a large capital investment program, which saw maybe 4 or 5 machines connected, or 3 of which were connected with a AGV, an automatic guided vehicle system. And that's really what started our, I guess, real unattended continuous operations. But then we had quite a gap, and I'd say like in the last 3 to 4 years, we've really started another heavy capital investment program, which has seen us probably invest about $10 million all
Wow.
up in various processes within the Bunbury facility.
I guess I should also clarify, the Bunbury facility, is that strategically located for like the mining sector? Is it just sort of the history of the company ended up there, or what's sort of the setup of being in that location?
Yeah, so Neville started the business in his backyard in a small shed in 1968 in Busselton, which is about 50 kilometres south of Bunbury. But in Bunbury, there was a lot of mineral sands mining and processing happening in the early 70s. So he decided to move the business up to Bunbury in 1971. And we continued really just with Bunbury through till around about 1991, which is when we opened up the Kewdale branch and started focusing on gearboxes and other service overhauls, which is what Shane Atwood looks after. And yeah, so that was really the reason for starting it here. And because it's been such a local sort of family business with lots of families from the local area sort of coming to work here, it just seems like the logical choice to remain here. So most of our customers are thousands of kilometres away. But yeah, we still find this a great place to employ people and have that sort of almost country lifestyle. We're about 2 hours south of Perth, which is the capital city of WA. So it's quite a rural sort of setting.
Hexagon's technology and solutions enable stakeholders across the mining industry to make better decisions faster. Get smarter integrated cloudware sensor software solutions and in-field apps that connect mines to boardrooms in real time. Hexagon offers safer, autonomous, more sustainable open pit and underground mining solutions spanning exploration and planning, safety, and operations. Visit hexagon.com/mining or email info.min@hexagon.com today. Okay, so let's give a special thank you to one of our longest sponsors of the show, Savona Equipment. And I'm actually going to hand it over to Jared so that he can give you a little bit more info on Savona Equipment.
Yeah, thank you. So I mean, people see them as sponsors, so they'll ask me, kind of who they are, what they are, and just trying to understand the scope of the company. So Savona Equipment is a mining supply company, and they're delivering on the whole equipment supply chain. So everything from the ore processing to underground mining, open pit. They're in hard rock and placer operations. And what they're doing is they're sourcing equipment from all over the world and then delivering it all over the world. Now, they are a Canadian company, so they're based there, but, let's say, they're selling entire ore processing plants. So there might be a plant down in Latin America, and there's a new mine that needs that plant in Africa or somewhere in the US. So they're facilitating that entire transactions. But they're also delivering, an individual conveyor or a concentrator or a pump package or just an electrical package. So it really is the whole gambit of the mining equipment supply chain.
Oh, that's great then. Well, then you definitely have to check them out if you're looking for mining equipment. Visit them at savonaequipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day. The CIM 2023 Convention and Expo is coming to Montreal from April 30th to May 3rd. So join us in recognizing your peers at the annual CIM Awards Gala. This year is extra special because CIM is celebrating its 125th anniversary. There will be special programming and perks for exhibitors and attendees alike. Registration is now open and tickets sell out fast, so visit CIM.org to register now for short courses and explore sponsorship opportunities.
Yeah, now the robot's back, so you're back to competing with that now. Okay, let's go over the last couple of years or last few years. What was sort of the first major investments, like from the actual equipment? Where were sort of the big investments made first?
Yeah, so it started off, I think it was around 2017. We saw the need for an automated way of grinding our bushes. So grinding is just a finishing process to get a very accurate, very smooth surface. On our hollow products, so bush components that go in pivot points of excavators and trucks and things like that. So we started this journey of trying to find a suitable machine, which took a long time, probably 8, 9, 10 months, something like that. And when we found a machine, we actually placed an order. And unfortunately, when the machine was ready to go and pick up, it wasn't capable of doing what we actually wanted it to do. So we cancelled that order, went back to the drawing board, and 6 months later, we came across the machines that are behind us, which is called a CVG9, CNC grinding machine, vertical grinding machine. They come out of Japan, and we purchased one, which was installed probably November 2020 or 2021. Don't know now. About 2 years ago, 18 months, 2 years ago. And it was only 3 or 4 months after putting that into place that we went, it's full already. And so we bought the second one and adapted the robot you see behind us. It was just loading one machine from a fixed point. We then integrated it onto a robot rail. So it now feeds both machines just on a continuous basis. And we have been, it's a very, very sound cell. And we've had multiple days where it's run 24 hours a day continuously. I think to my left of the screen, you can see a few sort of tables. There's gates there, and we actually have an automatic guided vehicle system that comes and takes work away when it's completed, and then puts a new pallet load of work in, so the machine can just continue on operating when no one's around. Very, very successful.
Why that? Yeah, that first robot, what about it didn't work, and what about this one makes it so effective?
No, it's actually that same robot. It worked very, very well. The reason for deciding to put 2 machines on the one robot cell, one, we already own the robot.
Sorry. I wanted to clarify. You said you canceled the first order, I thought.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was for the actual grinding machine.
Sorry.
So the first grinding machine, when we went and did an acceptance test for the purchase of the machine, is actually in America. We went there and we asked it to do a specific process, which was just grind a bush, and it had what we call vibration. So it didn't leave a nice smooth surface. It left a series of flat spots on it. And we said, well, that's not good enough. And then the real killer, all of our equipment has probes on that can measure the parts, usually down to microns of accuracy, so that we do the inspection of the parts within the machine. So we paid extra money to have a probe fitted, a measuring probe fitted. And unfortunately, when we said, okay, that's cool, there's the probe there, can you get it to measure this part and report the results? It said, well no, you didn't ask for that. And we go, well, we asked for a probe. And yeah, when they said, no, it'll cost more money to integrate the probe to make it work, that combined with the fact that it couldn't do the surface finish that we required, we just said, oh, look, sorry, we've just got to pull out of this deal. We couldn't really accept a machine that wasn't going to perform how we envisaged it to perform. We're very isolated here in the sense a couple of hours away from Perth, which is 4 or 5 hours away from Sydney and the east coast of Australia, where there's far more manufacturing and the automation and all that sort of stuff needs to be supported from 5,000 kilometers away in a lot of cases. So we need these. So
going to this robot and Rod, my apologies. I kind of mixed up the grinding machine with the robot or with the order. So my apologies on that. So now you have. So you ended up with a new grinding machine. The new grinding machines now that were effective, and they're automating that system then, right? The new ones.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so they were prior to these 2 machines, or the first machine turning up, we had 2 operators running a machine each to individually grind the outside of the bush, and then another machine and another person grinding the inside of the bush. Along with that, every time they need to change size, you had to do a different setup on the machine. So you're losing production time, due to those setups. And most of our work is fairly small batches. Now, we do a large batch of maybe 8 or 12.
Right.
You know, quite typical batches are 2 to 4. So we need to really reduce those setup times. So by going to these machines, we now have machines that will run 24 hours a day. The setup itself is done outside of the machine. So we've actually designed and developed a setup cell, and the robot might be doing it in the background as we speak. It will grab a magnet and put it onto a little unit that we have, then grab the part and put it onto the top of the magnet. And we've got a little machine that will center the bush onto the magnet, because when we go to grind it, the bush itself, the component that we're going to grind, needs to be lined up very accurately to the center of the machine, or else it'll, how would I say, it'll grind it off center. It just won't do the process. So we've designed that so that setup process now happens outside of the operating of the machine, in that sort of idle time, if you like, or in the indirect time of the machine. That way, as soon as the machine itself has finished the process, it takes one magnetic pallet out of the machine and puts another magnetic pallet with a new part ready to grind in the machine. And it's something like a 30-second changeover from one part to the next, or one complete job to the next job. So yeah, very, very efficient in that manner.
Now to go over to the robotic, or to expand on the robot, why that particular robot? What about it made it the right choice for you, and ultimately decided to go with it?
Yeah, so it's a FANUC robot. We bought our first FANUC robot in 1993, I believe. Clayton, who you'll speak to later, he went to a trade show, saw the robot, and went, I can't do without it. Not the one behind us, but another one that's still in operation. Like 30 years ago. So we wanted to stay with FANUC because we were used to it, but also the renowned worldwide as being a very capable and repeatable machine. They're one of the best, or if not the best, robots you're going to get. Also, the company that we use locally in Australia, Automated Solutions Australia, they specialise in FANUC robots. So that's the reason for it being a FANUC robot. The actual robot itself was selected because it had the weight carrying capacity. So we need to be able to grind bushes up to around about 120, 130 kilos. And so this robot's got a 270 kilo capacity lift. And by the time you take the hand, or what's called the gripper, and the magnet and the component all into account, then it starts to get up to that 250, 270 kilo capacity. And it also needed to be able to have a reach of around 2.5 meters in order to reach around the whole cell, from picking up parts to being able to place it into the machine. And that's pretty much the reason for, yeah.
Yeah. Is it, when you're investing in these types of things, and it's really nice you had the example of where it didn't get the results you wanted, and then you upgraded the machines to do it. But is there a methodology that you're using? How are you deciding? I'm trying to sort of wrap my head around when you've got all these products and all these processes, and then you go, okay, we're going to invest millions in this particular system. Is it a specific methodology? Have you developed your own? How do you approach it?
It's probably quite consistent, but it developed on our own at the same time. I tend to look at all of the recent history, say the last 4 or 5 years of the products that we're making, have a look at where the bottlenecks might be from a current capacity point of view. Have a look at what we've done in lost sales. So we record all of our lost sales. So if we've lost sales due to maybe we don't have the capability of doing that product, maybe we don't have enough stock, or the lead times are too long, anything like that that's led to a lost sale, price is too high, we'll have a look at all of that sort of data, bring it back into a pool of information, if you like, and categorize it by size and profile. So we do a lot of solid products. Our pins and shafts are of solid nature, whereas our bushes are hollow nature. So we'll break down through really what our bottleneck is, down to what size or size range we need. And so we determined on these machines that we need to be able to do the majority of work from 200 millimeters through to 500 millimeters. So the machine itself is capable of doing down to about 100 millimeter outside diameter, out to around about 600 or 700 outside diameter. But we selected and did a return on investment calculations on 200 to 500 diameter to make sure we had enough work for that size range. Once we know we've got enough work, so what we're looking for is around about 8,000 hours or 8,760 is our key sort of number, 8760, one whole year of hours. And we want to make sure that we can maximize that 8760 through whatever equipment we buy. So provided we've got a perceived future workload of 8,000 plus hours in a year, we'll look at investing in that technology or that equipment and how we can automate it to operate where possible unattended, or by allowing the operator to work part-time on a particular machine and perhaps part-time on another machine. So for example, the machines behind us, the CVG9s, we started off with an operator when he was learning pretty well full-time on one machine. So spending 8 hours a day running one machine and setting it up to operate as many hours as we could in the afternoon and overnight. So he did that for quite a while. We got to a point where we very quickly realized that we'd filled up 24 hours in a day and we needed a second one. So we did the return on investment calculations based now on 16,000 hours of grinding per year, placed the order, got the machine in, and as part of the configuration, we now have that one operator operating the two CVG9s and a third machine. So he's now really effectively one person, one highly skilled tradesperson is now operating 3 robot-loaded machines, the 2 behind us and another one next door. So that's the process we sort of go through of how we can eliminate labor, not from our business. We've got more people in our business, the more automated we get. It takes an incredible backlog of people, setting up pallet loads of work, operating the machine, keeping the robots going. So it's not about reducing labor from a company perspective. It's about reducing labor from a, I guess, cost per part perspective. So if we can have more equipment operating for longer with the same number of staff, or not a ratio of 1-to-1, which you might have on a traditional manual machine, but more of a 1-to-2 or 1-to-3, then it's ideal.
I wanted to touch on something you said, because you've approached it from I wanted to clarify. So when you say lost sales, are you speaking purely on talking about lost sales on orders on a product that you already deliver on, but you weren't able to meet capacity on that lost sale, or a lost sale on a product that you're not producing right now? And I want to further clarify that. What I mean is, it sounds like you're making investments on what you're already delivering to customers. You're not going and saying, we're going to build a whole new system so that we can deliver this new product. You're building off of what you already have as a base. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'd say 90% of our decisions with regard to lost sales would be for parts that we currently make or potentially could make. So there might be a new machine, excavator or mining truck or something like that, that we haven't yet captured all the information for, but we might know that is a future job as well, and we might have customer inquiries about a part that we've not yet developed. So we are, yes, definitely looking into the future, but most of our lost sales would be on parts that we currently either make or have made in the past that maybe we no longer stock as a standard part that we stock. It might be a made to order, and our delivery times may be too long, or some other reason like that.
Fender Dunlop Usflex belts are engineered to withstand the harshest applications, delivering benefits that solve customer problems via superior rip, tear, and impact resistance. Usflex are extremely strong and robust belts that are difficult to destroy, which is important for heavy-duty bulk material handling environments. Made in their very own North American manufacturing facilities, this revolutionary concept in straight warp conveyor belting is up to 3 times more impact resistant versus competitor belting. Usflex users use fewer belts per year, make fewer belt repairs and replacements, reduce or eliminate belt downtime, and improve employee safety. You can visit FenderDunlopAmericas.com to learn more about their premium Usflex conveyor belting. Introducing the SolarSet Fold. The new foldable frame solar system brings power to your residential and commercial property and can be shipped worldwide. Like all SolarSet products, the SolarSet Fold comes turnkey, pre-assembled, and is easily transported and installed. Learn more about SolarSet Fold and their full line of amazing solar systems at solarset.com.
I'm going to wrap up fairly shortly here and basically get some stories from Clayton to sort of wrap everything up, sort of package it all together, these 3 episodes. But I think for the audience listening, because you've had so much first-hand experience, a lot of people won't get a chance to ask somebody who's been, with a company this long, seeing so many iterations of automation come through. What is the most, if you were as someone was going to bring it on, was going to, wow, I'm really struggling here. If someone was going to do it themselves, what would be the biggest challenge you would tell them to expect to have from your experience when you're taking on automation and robotics and, turning one person is now effectively running 3 operations for a job that they used to do. What is the biggest challenge of taking on that sort of investment in the manufacturing process?
So getting it right is the biggest challenge. Learning every time. We take a lot of time looking at all the inputs into making a job. So we look at, okay, there's a labor input. There's his setup. What is taking the most time? What bugs us? What do we want to remove from the system if we could? But every time we buy a machine, we have to learn what we missed out on. We try to go through a checklist of everything we can think of, but unfortunately we still get it wrong. You still go, oh, it doesn't do this. Why didn't we think of that? And we add that obviously to our next checklist. So eventually we just learn by our mistakes. We've made plenty. We continue to make plenty, unfortunately. But learning just every time we sit down to talk about it, we get our heads together with people from throughout the business and external to the business, and we just go through everything we can and go, oh, remember the last time we did that? It didn't work out. How are we going to remove that risk again? How are we going to get it right? And yeah, we're getting better without a doubt, but still a long way to go. We're still learning.
Okay, are you ever at the risk then, kind of almost over planning? Like, do you now purposely, because you've got the experience, do you plan everything you can, but do you sort of almost make that mental note and sort of let the team know we're missing stuff? We know we're missing stuff. Let's not spend another 2 years trying to go through all the scenarios, and then we're going to miss something anyway. Do you sort of put that out to the team?
100%. Most of the equipment we buy has a 9-month to 12-month lead time from when you place the order. So making a decision today to buy a machine, say we take 2 to 3 months of planning, getting quotes, maybe visiting the factory, make sure it can do what we want it to do, talking about the attributes we need on the machine, say 3 to 4 months, and then 9 to 12 months to have the machine turn up on site, and then maybe another 2 or 3 months of commissioning. We're sort of talking 12 to 15 months from the minute you say, let's buy a machine, to having it here. So we do have to use our crystal ball and look out into the future and go, well, if we've got this much work now, based on the forecast, where will we be? But yes, we can't spend forever thinking of every scenario. We do have to just use what we know, our best of our ability, try and iron out the bugs that we have on machines that we've already purchased in the past, and just look for every opportunity to make improvements, and then we just draw a line and buy it. we're very fortunate that we buy
Wow.
most of our equipment through only 2 or 3 suppliers. And in the event of this CBG9 behind us, as an example, there were shortcomings in the first one that we've put into the second one, and specifically asked for the retrofit to occur onto our original machine. So they're still identical
Right.
machines, even though there's a 12-month or so gap between the 2 machines. Because we want that technology, as we learn about it and implement it in new equipment, where possible, to be retrofitted into, the older equipment, even though it's only a year old.
Yeah, it's Rod. I hope I hope I've done what given what you're doing at that plant at least a little bit of justice, because it is really amazing. And your whole approach doing these 3-part series, we've got to talk to from different angles on every episode. Just amazing. So thanks for walking us through really the nuts and bolts. Awesome having the other robot did come to do the drop off while you were talking on the table robot.
Yeah.
What's that one called?
So directly behind us, that would be the centering station.
Yeah, there was a
So
table. There was like a robotic table that came in and
oh,
delivered something.
sorry. Yeah. So that's called a TTL, which is tabletop AGV. So it's a tabletop automatic guided vehicle. I know we've got to speak to Clayton to you soon, but we just installed in the last 3 or 4 months 4 automatic guided vehicles, 2 fork style, so typical sort of
Right.
forklift style, and 2 tabletop styles, and they will be loading work either into or to every workstation
Wow.
within the business within the next month or so. And so that it was one of the CBG9s was one of the first machines we hooked up to that, so that over periods like Easter,
Yeah.
where we have a 4-day weekend, that machine can just keep running with very, very limited human intervention.
Well, be
And
careful.
so, yeah, it just
As I say, be careful if it finds out that the guys are taking a 4-day holiday. It might not like it.
well, if we get to enjoy our weekends and long weekends while the plant is still running, that's one of our ultimate goals.
Absolutely. Rod, thank you so much
yeah.
for doing this interview. I hope we get to chat again, because I know there was a lot that we could have covered that we didn't. But thanks for doing this first one with us.
No, you're more than welcome, Gerard. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we are going to now we're going to bring on our next guest, Clayton Hyder. He is the chairman. We'll be back in just a moment with Clayton. Clayton, welcome to Mining Now. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, good morning. Glad to be here.
Yeah, good morning and good evening from Vancouver, BC. I've been knowing you're coming on. You're the chairman of the company. And having multiple people from your team on, including Sam, talking about the vision going forward. I kind of wanted to start at the beginning with you because there's so many places we can go, but to do it justice, I think we need to start at the beginning. How old were you when you started working for the company?
Yeah, fresh out of high school. I was 17 years old. I had no idea what career I'd like to spend my life in, and my father offered me an apprenticeship. Once I'd completed that, I could choose anywhere I wanted to go, and I managed to stay here for 48 years.
Wow. At what point, I mean, the company has a lot of vision, and of course there's without us having a talk before, obviously a certain measure of that has to come from you. So I was curious, when did you start to sort of feel that like, I want to build something, I want to push new ways of doing things, adopting new technology into our processes? When did that sort of type of thinking start to develop for you?
Well, in my early 20s, I could see the potential for this business to be able to supply a high sort of intensity of repairs and maintenance. You could see the need in the market for us to be able to supply rapid turnaround products. And there was a whole range of problems in the market getting supplies. In the 70s and 80s, we were a long way from anywhere. And the road networks, communications weren't as good as they are now. So the overall picture out in the field was that there was an urgency to get back into production and do repairs on broken equipment. And we were simply in a position where the quicker we could turn jobs around, our customers were going to be happier. So all the strategies employed in the business have been aimed at that ever since. And looking at the technology to be able to repeat the way we do something through programs started in 1973 with the first CNC equipment.
How did you choose to go that route, the CNC? Well, let's first clarify, what's the CNC equipment?
CNC is computer numeric control equipment. Any of the big machines that have computers attached that actually run the processes going on inside. My father bought the first ones in the early 70s. I started here in 1974. I could see the effect of the difference between the manual and the computerized systems. And it pretty much started from there. You could see the effect, and it was simply about looking for opportunities to get that level of consistency and repeatability, and also the speed that it proposed in turning jobs around much more quickly. It was about 8 times faster than a center lathe to run a batch of parts through a CNC.
Do you remember your first big investment where you personally pulled the trigger on it and got it developed and made that investment for improving processes?
Yes, it was 1984. It was an Akurma LC20 4-axis machine with a robot attached. And yeah, we were able to set it up to make small parts, mostly for underground at that time, because they were the smallest repeat parts we had. And yeah, look, getting used to the idea of involving the robot in loading and unloading the chucks was a very big insight into the design of the future equipment after that.
Was your father still involved in the company at that point when you made that decision?
Yes, he was. And 2 years later, about 1986, 87, I took over as managing director. And yeah, he started another business unit of the company in manufacturing gears and transmission components. So he went off to actually set up a whole gear division, and while he left me to run the main part of the
I see. So that would have, when we interviewed Shane Atwood, that would have been that section of the business, that sector.
Yes,
right.
Yes, it was.
There's been a couple in this little series that we've done with you. A trip to Japan has been mentioned a couple times. Was that you that did that initial trip to Japan, or was that your father, or both of you?
My father, in the first few years, in the early 70s, probably one of the first Australian companies to be in Japan looking for this type of equipment. And then by the 80s, I was involved, and I'd go with him. And then by the late 80s, things really started to move up when there was a worldwide market crash in 1987. And we took advantage of that. We were buying out other businesses that had failed or were being dismantled in tractor manufacturing, and we sort of bought a lot of equipment that was used equipment, but then we supplemented that in the late 80s and early 90s with the latest CNC multi-table lights out type machining.
Well, that leads me to another question I have to ask then. From a management perspective, to be able to essentially, that's a value investment strategy, is being able to, be in a position to actually buy out companies or buy their equipment and sort of spruce up your own when times are a bit tough. What was the management style back then to be able to be in that position during a downturn?
The downturn occurred in the markets. From our point of view, companies were constrained, their budgets were reduced. We offered a very cost-effective response to the sorts of things that they wanted to buy. So we looked available, we were the right price, and our quality in the market had already been there for 15 or 18 years in this type of product. So we had a good reputation. So we were a go-to choice when everything got tight. And pretty much we have strategies for being able to reduce the downtime of machines. Therefore, the cost effectiveness of a component can be quite visible.
We're really living in a time where the supply chain has become, turn on the news, you'll hear about it. It's just such a focal point on every level of industry, in every industry. So when how would you manage that? I mean, you've done a lot of development in just being able to produce to not sort of be at the mercy of the supply chain challenges, or some of them anyway. Can you talk a little bit about that? Or maybe I should first clarify that I have that right. That's sort of the impression I got from these last few interviews.
Oh, absolutely. You can ask anything about us. We're a very open book and we share lots of our commercial data with our staff. The screens around here will show our profitability, sales, turnover, all that sort of stuff. So as far as information and visibility is concerned, we're sensitive on some issues which are strategic or competitive, but on most of it, I think it's another business with a profile. If your staff don't know what's going on and your best suppliers haven't got insights into how you're managing and how to help you, it becomes even more difficult. So we're very open in that sense. And from the supply chain point of view, we use the raw steel bars and hollow bars, things like that, to make the core product. We've had an ongoing relationship for over 30 years with one big supplier. They're our go-to supplier. They probably supply about 80% of all our materials. And it started out on a handshake arrangement, but they will store up to 3 months of our future usage, and more if we're trying to enter the market with something new. So those sorts of strategies in terms of having great relationships, a lot of trust has been built over decades to be able to sort of move very quickly, but also have our suppliers buy into what our future requirements are and just be ready to provide them.
What about on the things like developing a foundry and those types of things? When did that type of approach come into play? Where really developing more and more in-house capabilities?
In the late 80s, there was a lot of constraints around getting castings into the business. We had a fabrication component of our business because it was a core part of what we were doing for the profile of customers at the time. We started to look at replacement parts, and not everything could be machined from solid steel. So we were looking at castings and a lot of copper alloys, bronzes, high tensile brasses, things like that. And the supplies were up to 3 months away. Because of foundries, natural lead times were quite long, and the ability for them to scale up was quite slow. I looked at a local supplier and he was quite old at the time and wanted to retire. I was his biggest customer after a while, and he proposed that he sell us the business. And it was the one way I could find of controlling the lead time on casting. So I became the foundryman for a few months, a year, and learnt how all the techniques were employed, and simply got used to the idea that we could shorten this lead time. So the insights to that, I've hired staff to run the foundry. I've made myself redundant in my various roles 7 or 8 times over the decades to try and understand how this component of our business would run, and then to replace myself with much better people than me to actually take that technical and actual delivery role on themselves. So those sorts of things over time have become strategies for reducing lead time, but also a quality strategy as well. If we don't like the look of a casting, it's porous, or things that don't look perfect, we can scrap it, put it back in the melt, and have it ready by the next day.
Right.
So these sorts of things gave us very, very short lead times. It reduced the time to manufacture, and it also reduced the amount of stock we needed to hold. So it was a cost effectiveness that we were looking for in still supplying a high level of service.
You, I mean, 54 years, I've probably made about 10 mistakes, and I think it's only Tuesday right now, this week. So, you've built an amazing company, and your team has, and now Sam, talking to him, it was an amazing discussion about just sort of bringing it all together. But is there a learning moment that you had in your career that, and I don't even actually want to say a mistake, because that's not really what I'm asking. Maybe even it was a really good move that you went, oh, that can be done. But is there something that stands out in your career that you went, that sort of defined, you discovered what you either can do or what you shouldn't do?
Look, as far as a business process was concerned, I could see extreme value in integration. And in the late 80s, I hired at least 10, I think, students, and nearly the whole class and their instructor from the university in the IT degree, and employed them here to write the software for Geographe. And that level of integration as an ERP system, we wrote the very first instance and later transferred over to an SAP environment because that's what our core customers were using. And that level of integration happened a few years after that. I could see the nature of integration throughout the business. We started the journey down the documented quality control and registered registration of the 9001 eventually, and integrating the environmental and the safety aspects of our organisation into exactly the same system. And I think one of the things that I sort of look back and perhaps would have been a learning moment, perhaps to have moved a little bit more quickly into the documentation and maintaining that external view of the reliability of what we do. And there's certain components of that. It took me quite a while, I guess, to earn the money to be able to do the next level all the time. And there were some things I put off, and perhaps it would have been better to just bring them forward a fair bit.
Yeah, that documentation, it's a major challenge for a company that's trying to grow and develop. Would have you done it more extreme, or do you think you could have just found a bit of a better balance? Meaning, would have you, when the cash flow wasn't what you needed it to be, would have you, if you could go back, would you put a whole bunch more effort into it, or would you just sort of balance it out a bit?
At the time in the market, we were very broad, and I think it would have been very useful a little bit earlier in our history to narrow our focus onto a more specific line of business. And that's only occurred in the last 10 years. We've been doing this line of business since the mid-80s. I'm still using drawings that we produced in 1984 to repeat components. So the idea of documenting the attributes of the components was a component of the whole picture in terms of trying to repeat the business. Even when it's only batches of one, you might not repeat it this year. But there was sort of elements of that. We might have used money to put into more concentrated streams of product a bit earlier on, might have given us a bit more momentum in the flywheel.
Clayton, I talked a little bit about it with Sam, sort of that global reach that you have now and some of the strategies implemented. But I wanted to, again, circle back to where that started. Where did Geographe, when did they start the global outreach or even that global outlook?
Started when we were selling components to some of our underground customers that were taking the parts to their contracts in South Africa. And we realized that the parts were actually being exported by them, and we weren't in those countries, and they still needed the services. When the airport was being built in Hong Kong, the earth-moving contractor was taking the parts from Perth, buying them there, and then exporting them to their machines. We realized that there was a market for the same machines that were owned by other contractors that perhaps we didn't have the same relationship with. So they were taking product to places like Suriname, Mongolia, Indonesia. And we started to understand that the product was going there anyway, and we were looking to expand our reach and expand the number of customers that were using the parts in those different markets.
How did that change the business? I mean, that's a whole other side of export and targeting markets. What was that first couple of years like, sort of shifting that focus or adding that focus, I should say?
Well, it was small, so we had a fair chance to learn as we went. There was a number of these customers that were able to be serviced from here. At the time, the exchange risks were low, and the risk to us was minimal. But we could see that to increase the production of those sorts of parts, and to scale up, we thought we'd take that on and just start with something that was close, somebody that was close, and start getting into the processes, having people in those markets. And it's modified itself quite a bit over the time in terms of how we do it. but certainly we've had the effect, and it's been very good for our business.
As we sort of wrap up this interview, I'm just curious again. You're 54 years I keep saying that it is 54 years, right? That you've been in the business.
Yes,
Okay,
it is. Yeah.
just making sure. When you start your day now and you're thinking about the business, what sort of is going through your mind? What's your focus? What's important to you, um, to kind of go through on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it's personal, I suppose, the way that the business is a family affair, and I try and sort of look at the business and its growth. I look at the staff here and their evolution. I think about the way in which these products, quite sophisticated in a world scene, from the metallurgy through to the performance metrics of every part. And we're building those skills in a regional centre. We're trying to expand our business reliably, so it's going to take a while, but you'd like to grow slowly but surely. There's spurts. Obviously you rush ahead at times and it's a little bit flat at other times. But I think from a business point of view, the reliability of the future market and the future prospects for the staff in our business, even if we were to put facilities, even manufacturing facilities, other places in the world, it's very much focused on the quality of what we do. It's the quality of life. It's our footprint in the environments and the communities in which we work. And we're trying to make sure that's a positive experience, another vertically integrated positive experience for everybody that touches our business. So from an internal personal development point of view, when productivity turns into more wages and perhaps it's above the market, and people here can actually have lifestyles that are achieved because of the innovation and their enthusiasm to get these sort of metrics to actually deliver their lifestyle.
Do you? I'll try to make this my last question. I seem to say that a lot, then I add on 2 or 3 more. But do you get a chance to relax a little bit now?
I love it. Yeah, like I made a gold medal beer the other day in my home brewery. I fish a fair bit, so yeah, like I try to get away. The fun of my job came from when Sam took over and all of the sort of compliance issues of the business weren't my main focus, and a lot of the administration of the organisation. I can concentrate on the things that I really enjoy, and I get out of bed, bring in my stack. I want to get to work because there's a lot of people here very enthusiastically involved in productivity measures, specking up, designing and implementing the new systems. I get heavily involved in just working with a team of people that are focused on improvement to everything. And this is the area that I excel. I actually enjoy those learning moments with the staff, and I enjoy redesigning or designing new parts of the delivery system for just more efficiency and reliability. I think the quality system has documented, the procedures, and sticking to that, giving people the freedom to innovate and the time in their jobs to actually think ahead and have the fun of doing that and implementing their own ideas. And helping them have the confidence to do that is, it's one of the most rewarding parts of my job.
Well, I have to say, Clayton, that one of the most rewarding parts of my job is being able to tell these stories of industry. I've dabbled in other careers, a little bit of home exterior. I've done even a little bit of performance stuff. And I kind of realized there was no getting away from the mining industry for me. It's just there. So,
well, you've made this a very pleasant experience. So I really appreciate your skills in that area. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, Clayton. And then getting to talk to you, to kind of button everything up, after talking to Shane and Rod and Sam, it's just great. So I just want to thank you on behalf of our team for doing this with us and hosting Dennis at your facilities. It's been absolutely amazing. So thank you.
And to be interesting to your viewers, I would like to think that the content and the things you bring to the market through these podcasts is an enlightening sort of process in itself. So I look at YouTube all the time for just snippets like you've brought in this podcast. And so, yeah, I'm more than willing to be on your team.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And yeah, you'll be seeing some of those clips with your brand on it. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for watching. Of course, we don't release the 3-part series in sequence. You're seeing this probably after seeing the other 2 and other episodes in between. But if you're getting a chance, we probably will actually put on our channel. We'll put this little mini series together as a playlist, and then we'll put the link in the description below. So if you're seeing this and you want to see the other 2, we'll make sure to put those links in. Thank you very much to the entire Geographe team. It's been an absolute pleasure, and this is our last episode we're filming in Australia as part of our Heavy Industry World Tour, so a great way to wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We love doing this. Thank you to our team for putting it all together. We will see you on the next episode of Mining Now.